While to some it may feel like we're back to normal, it would be a shame if we found ourselves in the same spot we began after living through such a turbulent time of innovation. We must not be so eager to forget about the COVID-19 pandemic that we fail to process the moments of magic that grew out of the turmoil. The landscape of learning evolved at supernatural speed. While educators were busy recovering from whiplash, the future arrived. Companies poured millions of dollars into expediting immersive technology to create a new reality. Hired.com called 2020 the year of augmented and virtual reality when they reported a 1,400% increase in AR/VR engineering job openings. In 2022, the edtech company Labster raised $47 million to build an Eduverse. Then, Meta announced a $150 million immersive learning project. The money is going to help 10 universities open their own metaverse campuses equipped with Meta Quest VR headsets for students. Educators are now on a fast track to adopt higher quality technology that was too cost prohibitive to even imagine before the pandemic. We are perhaps finally about to enter the coming of age that instructional technologists have been waiting for. Massive investments in immersive virtual learning have not only been coming from the Zuckerbergs of the world. Investment in time, money, and effort happened on the front lines of education. As an educator, I was aware of how dramatically my teaching changed because of the pandemic, so I wanted to find out how others were using technology to create interactive digital communities as our world embraces virtual experiences. The purpose of this research was to understand how educators innovated during the pandemic and to share their successes. This paper outlines different tools educators used in their university courses and what they learned about engaging students online. I hope to encourage more collaboration as we explore emerging technology that can bring learning to life. The questions guiding my research were, what are some of the challenges that educators faced when designing and teaching online courses? What are some of the innovative, disruptive solutions educators created or discovered that helped them overcome challenges associated with designing and teaching online courses? How have educators embraced emerging technology to increase engagement and promote social learning in online courses? Prior to the pandemic, the U.S. Department of Education reported that 1/3 of American college students had taken online courses. The number of undergraduates exclusively enrolled in distance education courses grew from 2.4 million in 2019 to 7 million just 1 year later. This created challenges for educators who tried to battle the negative impacts emergency remote learning had on student engagement and mental well-being. Researchers found the abrupt transition from in-person to online courses increased student anxiety and decreased motivation. Students lost peer communication networks. The psychological toll of isolation, loss, and financial burden wasn't only felt by students. While some educators were prepared to teach online, most felt they had insufficient bandwidth and preparation to transition in-person courses to online courses. Strategic online course development was found to be significantly different from courses offered online in response to the COVID-19 crisis. Campus support and instructional design teams were not staffed sufficiently to suddenly assist every educator with unique obstacles related to class size and subject matter. Educators struggled to engage students who became increasingly hard to reach. A survey of nearly 3,000 undergraduates from 30 American universities found access to adequate technology was a major barrier for student success in online classes. Researchers pushed for more nuanced measurements to better understand digital inequality students experienced. While previous studies found that most American students had access to a computer, Katz et al. Found that the pandemic revealed a detrimental number of students were underconnected. In their survey, students reported unreliable or slow internet access and digital devices that were insufficient for the needs of full-time online education. Some students reported needing to share devices with family members because they lost access to on-campus technology they relied on before the pandemic. In addition to dealing with new obstacles created by the pandemic, remote classes amplified challenges educators already faced adapting to new technology like lack of resources, training, and time. Even before the pandemic, many educators struggled to create visually compelling online courses because they lacked multimedia content creation and technical skills. Van der Hayden found that visual attractiveness of learning management systems can positively impact perceived ease of use and perceived usefulness. In 2020, Gapanchi et al. Built on this research and evaluated the importance of visual design. They found the impact of space design on both perceived ease of use and perceived usefulness were significant. Because strategic instructional design can make it easier for students to engage in online courses, educators needed to constantly be on the cutting edge of content creation. Perceived ease of use and perceived usefulness are two main elements in the technology acceptance model that we used as our framework for this study. Some universities are leading the way in acceptance of new education technology and crediting the pandemic with fueling their innovative initiatives. In November 2021, Stanford University published an article describing the Virtual People course, which they claim is among the first and largest courses to be taught almost entirely in virtual reality. Students attend fully remote class meetings through VR headsets using handheld controllers to move around. Many recent studies affirm VR's potential to improve learning. In a meta-analysis of more than 60 research studies, Merchant et al. Found that virtual environments are effective teaching tools in higher education. They specifically identified VR gaming as achieving the best student learning outcomes. Some researchers found that virtual gamified training platforms expanded during the pandemic and created an opportunity for the development of new learning experiences that promoted higher order thinking. In November 2021, Roblox announced that they're spending $10 million to launch Roblox Community Fund. The fund will enable educators to bring virtual reality gamification to their schools. The CEO even wrote about constructivism in the announcement, stating that students learn most effectively when given the opportunity to deepen their knowledge through hands-on experiences, problem solving, and collaboration with other people.
We are the shapers,
the architects,
the innovators. And this world
is ours for the making.
Roblox allows users to create and explore immersive 3D places. More than 9.5 million developers have produced their own immersive multiplayer experiences using Roblox Studio since 2018. Roblox Studio is a desktop design tool, but you can access Roblox on PC, Mac, iOS, Android, Amazon devices, Xbox One, Oculus Rift, and HTC Vive. In April 2020, Roblox had 146 million monthly active users. A year later, that number grew to 202 million monthly active users. 67% of them are under 16 years old. As the metaverse becomes more of a reality, it's not unlikely that students will begin to expect immersive co-experiences. Roblox is gearing up to provide customized and more nuanced experiences that will change the way we communicate with one another. Educators and academic institutions need to be ready to make the most of these opportunities.
Hey guys, it's Paris Hilton. Welcome to the Neon Carnival in Paris World, the hottest after party in the metaverse.
In October 2021, Paris Hilton announced on her YouTube channel that she was launching Paris World in Roblox, where fans can explore digital replicas of her mansion. In November 2021, Nike launched Nike Land in Roblox, where players can wear digital Nike shoes, clothes, and accessories while they play games with friends. A month later, Tommy Hilfiger announced a collaboration with designers from the Roblox community to develop digital clothing for avatars. The popularity of games like Roblox could not only help gamify learning, but their familiarity with this technology could help reduce cognitive load as students start using Roblox for education. Because I wanted to understand what impacts an educator's decision to embrace new learning technologies, my research was informed by TAM. Under TAM, perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use are crucial factors in adoption of new technology. The pandemic created a unique ecosystem in which educators faced new and worsening challenges engaging with students. To examine how educators met that challenge, I framed my study around the theory that educators were more likely to embrace a solution that was useful in solving their problems and easy to learn. For that reason, I spent time asking about the problems they faced. Some educators admitted that new technology had the potential of addressing their problems, but they struggled to accept the technology out of fear of the unknown, time it would take to learn, and cost. Because I hypothesized that emerging technologies had the power to solve some of the educators' problems, I was curious to investigate the factors that influenced their decision to embrace new technology so we could better understand what stands in the way of innovation. I started my qualitative study by reaching out to educators and instructional designers at the University of South Florida. I interviewed 2 professors, 4 instructors, and 5 instructional designers via Zoom. Interviews ranged from 30 minutes to nearly 2 hours. Their disciplines included music, journalism, biology, English, advertising, graphic design, and sustainability. During the interviews, I asked initial questions about their discipline, class size, and grade level. I asked about how they design their classes and their learning management systems and why. I was curious to learn more about whether their online courses were previously in person and what challenges they faced transitioning the courses online. For my qualitative data analysis, I coded memos and reviewed interview transcripts for thematic analysis. I coded each tool educators mentioned to better understand who used it and why. My codebook included tools like online gaming creation systems, 3D animation software, learning management systems, course authoring tools, video platforms, video conferencing tools, discussion platforms, virtual reality, and augmented reality. Many of the people I interviewed shared similar struggles teaching online. Online discussions came up in every interview. Several people I interviewed complained about the time it took to find and learn tools to solve their problems. Visual design was a common topic that educators spoke about. The most fascinating responses came from the questions I asked about solutions they found or created to meet their challenges. While pedagogy and design theory were often considered as part of their course creations, the emerging theme was a strong focus and reliance on tools. A common thread in my interviews that appeared to mirror sentiment across the country stressed that universities need institutional support to meet the challenges educators face engaging students online. Several educators I interviewed argued that virtual reality headsets should be sent to every student to empower them to have an experience that is as immersive as possible. Another theme identified in my interviews was apprehension. It's a bit scary to use a new tool with students who may expect you to be all-knowing. It can be intimidating to try to learn a new tool that you haven't used before. People also said it's hard to know what new technology is available. Some struggle to think of ways to create engaging experiences for students online. Nonetheless, every person we interviewed found a way to use a tool to meet their challenges. The following findings are organized by the tools educators adopted and how they perceived these tools improved student engagement and motivation. Let's start with one of the most innovative professors I interviewed and the tool he used, Roblox. Before the pandemic, this professor taught climate change and sustainability in person. When COVID-19 forced him to move his classes online, he used the Roblox game to digitally recreate his classroom to give students a sense of normalcy. He soon realized that if I could take the students anywhere, why would we go back to the classroom? Instead of teaching students with PowerPoint decks, he turned his slides into digital billboards in the Roblox world. Student avatars rode together in a cart on a rail and virtually passed the digital billboards. Shortly after launching the digital billboard tour, he asked, "Why are we walking around in this virtual world when we can fly?" He geocoded a map and let student avatars fly. He offered his students a fun way to socialize and create community, which he believes was a key reason for his tool's success. Roblox may have helped reduce isolation and loneliness students felt during the pandemic because students could interact with the course content and engage as an active participant in their learning. The effort this professor put into creating something special appeared to give the students more motivation to learn. As his experience gamifying learning evolved, he shifted his thoughts from solving problems created by the pandemic to better understanding the problems associated with teaching in person. He couldn't shake thoughts of the sage on the stage concept. He realized that the traditional classroom is horribly designed. The space itself is intimidating for students since the educator is physically often placed at the front of the class behind a lectern. He found that online learning was more human because it fights this concept of a professor as a power figure. When the pandemic forced educators to teach remotely, professors often taught from home, sometimes with babies and pets on their laps. He appreciated that online teaching meant that professors could be themselves and not feel so pressured to play a role. He insisted that if done correctly, online teaching can be less conforming, more authentic, and more fun. He felt like the pandemic was an excuse to be more generous with students. He told me, "Suddenly, everything I dreamed of was okay to try." Instead of deadlines, he started giving lifelines to students who needed extensions to reduce anxiety. He said part of him wishes we didn't have to go back to normal after the pandemic. He noted that the pandemic pointed out the shortcomings of physical buildings. On top of costing a lot of money, he argued that campus buildings aren't sustainable. He said classrooms don't know if they're theaters or detentions or jail cells. He said, "We can use classrooms in theatrical ways with mood music and adventures with storytelling, but most professors aren't teaching that way, so why be in a classroom that's designed like an amphitheater?" Flipside is another innovative tool that one of the educators we interviewed used to engage students in virtual production. Flipside says it's the world's first virtual TV studio for live, real-time motion capture of animated content. It allows creators to customize animated 3D characters and their environment. While Flipside Studio lets users create and voice simple animations, its extended reality, VR, and AR tools are expansive. It can use data from full bodysuits to track real movement that appears in 360-degree environments as animated characters. A professor we spoke with used Flipside to create animated videos for his online course. He voiced animated characters to make the course more fun and add instructor presence. The videos introduced the course materials and helped students understand what's expected of them. One professor used Plotagon so students could create a virtual world together to learn applied research. Plotagon is a mobile and desktop app that turns text into video. The user interface lets students customize the way characters look and what they wear. Students wrote scripts and narrated character dialogue. Then they assigned movements to the characters that they selected from a bank of animations. Students had the choice of narrating the character script themselves, or Plotagon can automate text-to-speech. The professor said that students felt engaged and motivated when they were empowered to create their own learning content in a creative way. Instructional designers I spoke with used 360-degree cameras to shoot videos and photos that students could view on a desktop, a mobile device, or in a mobile VR headset. 360-degree video can have great appeal since it's still novel in education and can have profound effects on cognition and emotion. For a death and dying course, USF digital learning videographers created a virtual reality tour of a cemetery at the height of the pandemic using a 360-degree camera. Students learning from home could wear a mobile VR headset and turn their heads around for a personal and intimate point of view that made them feel like they were standing in the middle of the cemetery. The video team also interviewed people who worked there on camera to give students a more impactful and memorable viewing experience. As 360-degree video cameras increase in quality and ease of use, they become a powerful tool to immerse students in online course content. It was no surprise that everyone I interviewed talked about video conferencing tools. Zoom went from 10 million to 300 million daily meetings in the first 4 months of 2020. Microsoft Teams usage grew by 894% from February to June of 2020. Educators and instructional designers we spoke with agreed that video conferencing tools enabled schools to quickly transition to remote learning at the beginning of the pandemic. But when teachers were met with black squares instead of webcams, they felt the lack of social connection and felt nostalgic for in-person classes. While many expressed frustration that they couldn't convince students to turn on their web cameras, others acknowledged that they developed more empathy for students who lacked sufficient devices and broadband to fully engage in courses over Teams and Zoom from home. As a result, several educators I spoke with began offering resources about how to connect computers to routers using Ethernet cables. Some said that students didn't understand how to get the most out of their at-home internet, like sitting closer to their Wi-Fi routers. Others recommended students access free Wi-Fi or hotspots at libraries. Educators expressed that at the start of the pandemic, they struggled to think of ways to advance their video conferencing meetings beyond passive learning, like lecturing at the students for the entire duration of the class. But as time passed, their institutions had more conversations about how to design and get the most out of synchronous sessions. Some found success with chunking sessions to improve the pacing and keep students interested. They created synchronous lesson plans where they would start with icebreakers, then do breakout rooms, followed by short assessments and frequent knowledge checks. Breakout rooms became one solution that several educators appreciated to make larger class discussions more manageable. A music professor shared his unique experience using video conferencing tools for ensemble lessons. While he struggled to record high-quality audio of synchronous student performances, he discovered one element of video conferencing that he preferred over in-person class. He said that Zoom breakout rooms allowed smaller groups of students to practice together more effectively. While in person, his students would break into groups and practice playing instruments in their own corner of the room. Online breakout rooms meant that they weren't distracted by the noise of other groups practicing different parts of the music. Another advantage of video conferencing tools is that it enabled collaboration with guest speakers or teams across the country or even around the globe. An online Spanish class used video conferencing to pair students up with other students in Spanish-speaking countries. They engaged in conversations in Spanish in a more authentic way than they would have if the class was in person. This also added a cultural learning element to the course. In an attempt to increase engagement between students, one professor we interviewed used the social annotation tool Perusal in the learning management system Canvas. He uploaded readings and videos into Perusal, where students wrote comments and took notes. Perusal marked time codes when students commented on video lectures to make it easy to find video annotations. He felt like it was a more authentic form of communication than traditional threaded discussions. It also offered a form of automated grading where student comments can get more points when they're upvoted. The Canvas Learning Management System, or LMS, was seen both as a challenge and a solution to teaching online. Canvas was, without a doubt, the most frequently talked about tool that every instructional designer and educator brought up during the interviews. While some offered tips for getting the most out of Canvas, others critiqued downsides of Canvas that led them to switch parts of their online classes to other tools. Generally, instructional designers spoke more favorably about Canvas than educators. This appeared to be tied to familiarity with LMS and department training and support, or lack thereof. Instructional designers saw Canvas as an integral part of their jobs. They were trained more thoroughly on Canvas and were more aware of the options unknown to most educators. One solution that was mentioned by several instructional designers was templates. Instructional designers created more classes than most instructors and professors, so templates were especially useful at increasing efficiency. Instructional designers use and create templates that they share in the Canvas Commons section for anyone at their institution to download. The challenge with this solution is that not many people outside of the instructional design team seem to be aware that these templates existed. Canvas Commons allows you to see how many times the templates are downloaded, and during one interview, an instructional designer noticed a template they considered really useful barely had any downloads. They insisted they would try to bridge this disconnect in conversations about communication with colleges. While templates in Canvas save time, they also provided another solution that became a common theme in interviews. Templates provided consistent visual design. Visual design isn't only aesthetically appealing. Several instructional designers pointed out that consistent placement of content and resources in an LMS helps students reduce cognitive load that hopefully result in improved learning and less frustration. Several people we interviewed stressed how important it is for educators to use a Getting Started module at the top of their Canvas course to provide resources for students who don't necessarily know how to navigate their online courses. They mentioned that educators often assume that digitally native students know how to use every tool, but often find students are struggling well into the semester because they lacked an understanding of how to use Canvas. An educator who taught large asynchronous online classes for years recommended that educators consider using Canvas's peer review function. Canvas can automatically assign 2 peers to review each assignment. This encourages students to get to know one another and helps students see where their work stands compared to other classmates. For the peer-reviewed work, he said it's vital to create clear and concise grading rubrics and deadlines. In addition to grading one another's assignments, students also had to provide rationale, which he argued helps students learn as they review. The most common complaint educators had about Canvas was discussions. Many felt that Canvas threaded discussions felt inauthentic. One instructional designer stressed the importance of phrasing a threaded discussion in a way that elicits more authentic engagement. He recommended that any teacher assigning a discussion think more thoroughly about their discussion prompts. He argued poor discussions are often a result of poorly thought out questions. He insisted that discussions are more successful if educators in a large class break discussions into smaller groups. He said this improves the user experience because it eliminates the need to scroll past hundreds of posts. He also made a point about due dates. Many educators set assignment due dates for Sunday at 11:59 p.m. He argued it's, quote, somewhat criminal to not be available to students before an assignment is due. He insisted if you don't work on Sunday, don't have an assignment due on Sunday. His tip was to have assignments due on a weekday when educators are accessible. Regardless of which day or time an educator selects, many people we interviewed argued that consistent due dates are crucial at helping students succeed while they're often balancing deadlines for several other classes at the same time. Making assignments due on the same day every week should help students stay organized. Another critique of Canvas is that it's not designed for real-time social interaction like Slack or Discord. Several people we interviewed also complained that Canvas analytics are limited. While it's possible to see how much time students spend in the course, educators said that they wished analytics were more detailed so that they could use the data to adjust their courses. Several of the instructional designers I interviewed said the media hosting platform Kaltura can be a great tool to get those in-depth analytics that educators can use to fine-tune their decisions. Kaltura can be integrated into an LMS, like Canvas, which makes assessments more efficient. Educators or instructional designers can embed checkpoints during videos that ask students to answer questions or reflect on what they're watching before they can watch the rest of the video. Student answers can go directly into the Canvas gradebook. This type of assessment can be more interactive and engaging than traditional quizzes. It also keeps students accountable to watch course videos. Educators can also see exactly when a student stopped watching. Identifying patterns in student viewing habits can inform how long videos should last or whether certain parts of the video can be improved. One instructional designer that we spoke with said that she often uses those analytics to show educators that their course videos are just too long. Kaltura lets users create chapters, which segments videos into shorter durations. This chunking method is now common practice in instructional design. It was originally credited to George A. Miller in 1956. He researched working memory and argued that chunking content helps educators reduce cognitive load that leads to better retention. A few other cool features include the ability for students to search through video captions for keywords and then jump to that part of the video. Teachers can also use Kaltura to screen capture what's on their computer, like a PowerPoint presentation. Kaltura can also record from your web camera. Articulate 360 also offers more options for educators to incorporate frequent assessment in creative ways that aren't always available directly in an LMS. Instructional designers we spoke with use Storyline 360, but some also use Rise 360. Storyline 360 is an e-learning authoring tool that resembles PowerPoint. It comes with template options that are specific to the needs of educators and trainers. It also has a large bank of real and animated characters with different body language or facial expressions. Storyline 360 allows for more engaging interactions than traditional linear presentations. For example, an educator can create branching scenarios where students choose their own adventure. Instructional designers I met with often use the drag and drop feature to give students a break from traditional multiple choice questions. They often embed videos of instructors inside the Storyline 360 experience. One of the use cases I encountered during my interviews was for a geosciences course. The digital learning group teamed up with a professor to take online students on a trip down a river. They used drone cameras to capture the trip from above. Videographers kayaked along the professor as he spoke to the camera from the middle of the river. They also used waterproof cameras to immerse students in the environment. The point of the lesson was to teach students about how the water and environment changed as the river flowed south. The video team edited short videos at several stops along the river. Then the instructional design team created a map of the river and embedded it into a Canvas course. Students could click on hotspots along the river to watch videos. While students may have enjoyed kayaking down the river in person, it would have been harder to hear what the professor was saying. With high-quality video cameras and microphones, the videos of the professor may have led to greater learning for students.